There have been so many new spells and updated spells that have been teased and released over the last week. And I haven't covered all of it because I feel like I can only truly cover the schools that I have a max level wizard on. So that would be Life, Storm, and Fire. I wanted to cover Fire in particular because I feel like Fire needed a lot of help with their shadow spells. If you compare Storm and Fire, Storm is so far ahead of Fire in terms of their shadow spells that it's actually kind of embarrassing for the Fire School. So I want to go ahead and look at these new updates because Fire School needed it. So I'm on my Fire here. Let's go ahead and look at the current FFA in the game. It is right over here. So Fire from Above currently for 5 pips and 1 shadow does 1425 overtime split amongst 3 overtimes that tick for 6 rounds. And then it also puts up the 3 20% traps. So this is the current Fire from Above. Pretty much unusable. There are some very specific bosses where this could be used, but honestly, it's usually a better bet to just use Rain of Fire. This is why I was so disappointed when they changed Rain of Fire. I don't know why they keep changing so many spells. Spells are losing their identity with all these changes, but they've changed Rain of Fire back. So why did they make FFA? I just saw another Blaze Fire. Who was that? Wait, hold on. I'm sorry to derail this video. Let me go on a mount. I'm going on a bound Sculpture just to find this guy. I literally just saw another BlazeLifehammer. Yo, here he is. Warrior of Winterbane. Wait, who is this? He didn't even see me. Guys, right there, you just saw the real BlazeLifehammer go by. I can't believe it. The Warrior of Winterbane himself just went by. Wow, that is really funny. I just, out of the corner of my eye, I saw BlazeLifehammer. I'm like, okay, I'm on BlazeLifehammer currently, so that's hilarious that there's someone else questing. Okay, back to what I was talking about before I got interrupted. Well, I didn't really get interrupted. I got distracted. So here it is. I'll put it on the screen for you guys to see. But here is the updated FFA. They've changed it back to the initial big hit, and then it puts up the 3 traps, which do 25% each. This is what FFA should be. This is what everyone wants it to be. There's no reason for it to have the overtime. I don't know why they thought that all fire spells should be overtime. Yes, fire is the overtime school, but that doesn't mean every big spell needs to have an overtime or be an overtime. This spell was good because of the initial hit, and it was one of fire's best hits back in the day. I loved using this because you can just absolutely destroy any enemy in like a solo fight with FFA because it does 1,000 base damage. But yeah, they're changing FFA back to what it should be, which is good. And then the PvP challenge mode version of it is 555 initial hit, and it does 55% traps. You get 2 of those, which I'm totally fine with. It's just crazy that we had to go through all this back and forth just to get FFA back to what it was originally. And I feel like this is what they should do for all of these Darkmoor spells. They should look at what it was originally and be like, you know what, for PvE, we should revert these. I still think for FFA, they should add the separate paths that let you upgrade this one in PvE to just have more damage. And then they should also split it and then have the bottom path be the same, the 555 damage, and then upgrade that as well for PvP and challenge mode. I think they should still do that. I'm hoping that's something that's coming. They're just kind of testing these initial changes, seeing what people's reactions to them are. But yeah, FFA going back to normal is what everyone wants. Trust me, that is a good move, and they should keep that. Okay, next up is going to be Raging Bull. So this one, they're also reverting. Wow, look at all these fire spells that they're just reverting back to what they used to be. Because this is just how it should be. They shouldn't have changed Raging Bull to not have the smoke screen. So they're adding the smoke screen back to Raging Bull for PvE. And no one's going to complain about that because the detonate is cool, but it's not as useful for PvE as the smoke screen was. And to me, personally, I just like seeing Raging Bull go back to what it used to. They're still keeping it at 6 pips. I know a lot of people have been wanting this to be less pips because if it was 5 pips, it'd be comparable to Glow Bugs. It'd be a cheaper first turn shadow hit for fire, which would be nice. This spell doesn't get used as much by fire because, you know, it's not a first turn hit. It'd be cool if it was 5 pips, but I get it that it's 6 because that's what it originally was. But yeah, now we get the smoke screen back, and then the top tier is going to upgrade that damage, and then the bottom tier is going to be the divide. Someone left a comment on my first video and said the divide doesn't actually divide it in half if you're hitting 2 enemies. It doesn't divide by the amount of enemies. It actually is far less of a decrease in that, which is good, because then you're not losing damage as you like split the spell. So I didn't know that, but this one will do 595 and then detonate 3 overtimes for 160% damage, and then that will just increase the damage as you upgrade that. All right, next up is Scorching Scimitars. So this one, they are changing it from divided 2 enemies to the new symbol, which is going to split the damage. So it is a buff. This is a buff for Scorching, and I think this is a buff for all these 4-pip shadow spells for every school, since they're changing it to this. So we get a buff for PvE, and then you can upgrade the damage on the top path. The bottom path, it'll do less damage, and it'll also put up a 40% trap. Another thing I wanted to mention, I didn't mention it in this video, I did mention it in my life video, but they are changing these spells from being 2 shadow pips to just 1. So that is a big upgrade on all of these. The other thing to mention is they used to have this PvP only symbol here. They don't have that anymore, which means the bottom path can be used in PvE. So you could use the bottom path of Scorching if you want to anywhere in the game pretty much, because it is not like PvP only, because there is no symbol there. Alright, so Scion of Fire does have spell limit paths now. The PvE path is just going to be extra damage. It increases by 5 every time. The gambit stays the same, but the gambit does get a little bit more damage as well. And then the bottom path is the same as we saw with the life one, where it's going to drop down to 7 pips. And then this one will do 970 over 2 separate dots. Those take for 5 rounds. Or if you have 3+ dots on the enemy, then it will do 1625. Just big hit. Okay, so for blast off, I just don't think there's really hope for this spell. I mean, it's nice that they are giving options for this with the bottom path, because at this point, I feel like the bottom path is better than the top path, even for PvE. The top path is just useless. You're getting this deferred damage, which does increase the damage, but you have to wait 4 turns for that to happen. And then it also says +1 on overtimes. I think that means that any overtimes that are currently on the target all get upgraded by +1. But this is a lot of pips to do all this, because you're spending, 6 and a shadow, or if you upgrade it, 7 and a shadow, and then the top path can go all the way to 8 pips, upgrading the deferred damage. I just don't feel like that's worth it. But the bottom path does the split for 580, and then it does the 420 deferred damage. So the 420 deferred is just like an added bonus. You're hitting initially, and you can divide that damage, and then it will put the deferred on all those targets, which I feel like is pretty good. Okay, we're moving on to one of the best, if not the best, fire spell in the game. We have S'more Machine here. S'more Machine, I feel like, is just a straight up better FFA. And it does give overtime traps, though. FFA gives regular traps, so that's the difference. But it does higher damage. For fire solo, S'more Machine is like the go-to hit. This is what fires use. Maybe fires will use FFA now, because 4 or 5 pips, you do get a good single hit. Which is why I feel like FFA should be where it's at after this update, because it makes it usable. This is what fire needs. So fire will have that option for the 5 pip, and then if you want like the 7 pip, you'll upgrade it. And S'more Machine just does a ton of damage for 7 pips in a shadow. It's actually just crazy. They're also buffing the overtime trap to 40%. So that is pretty nice. They're also completely changing this spell for PvP, because they're making it 820 with 2 overtimes. Those tick for 4 rounds, and then you also get a heal overtime on yourself. Alright, so here's a bonus one to wrap things up. So they're changing Heckhound to increase the damage per pip. They've never really done this, I don't think, for the X pip spells. We don't have this for Tempest. We don't have this for Judgment. So the fact that they're doing this makes me feel like they could do this for Tempest someday, which would just make Storm even crazier. So Heckhound, you can upgrade the damage per pip by 5 every time. You upgrade that up to 150. And then for PvP and challenge mode, you basically get a new spell. I mean, actually, I shouldn't say PvP and challenge mode, because you can use this spell in PvE if you want to. So they're basically adding this new spell, which is 4 pip Heckhound. does 380, and then it puts up a 50% trap on the enemy. Actually, 2 of those if you have a heal over time on you. So new spell. This is a completely new spell that you can get if you go bottom path for Heckhound. Alright, so those are all the new fire spell changes. That was actually a lot. There's a lot going on with the fire school, and things could still change because we're not even in test room yet. All this is just pre-test room teasers. And I'm really excited for what they're going to do with the fire school because I feel like they can still make more changes here. The Heckhound one was surprising, and it kind of makes me feel like they could do that for other XPip spells. So I'm excited to see that. One last thing before we wrap up here, I just want to say I hope KingsIsle keeps PvE and PvP spells separate, because the fact that they've had to revert a lot of these spells proves that they were trying to like accommodate PvP with these changes, and then now that they're going back, it's like, okay, why do they have to do that in the first place? Why do PvE spells have to be changed to accommodate PvP? Why not just keep those paths separate and keep the PvE spells like what they were? Unless they actually are overpowered for PvE, then that's okay to change it. But I really hope that they keep these things separate, because I'm, especially for the Darkmoor spells, we've seen 2 fire spells just in this video that got reverted back to what they used to be, Raging Bull and FFA. So we'll see what happens. A lot more changes to come, but I wanted to make this video because the fire changes are pretty significant. So let me know what you guys think of that. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, if you made it all the way through, then definitely leave a like on it. Subscribe for more Wiz videos in the future. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you all next time.